faces. So this meeting is going to be recorded so we can live stream it out to those folk in Europe, in Australia, who aren't able to watch it via live stream. And so you can catch up and watch it again later, because why not? I'm Raven. I'm a member of the BIRCH Committee. And I would like to, on behalf of the BIRCH Committee, welcome you here for our first ritual, our opening ritual of the 2022 BIRCH meeting. Wow. So the intention for our ritual, let's take a breath. We gather from around the globe in all our glorious human diversity to hear stories that have carried us here. And you're going to hear that again, so don't worry about remembering it right now. We're going to be spending about 2.5 hours in ritual space. We will have a 5-minute break so you can sink into your own stories, get what you need, tend to your bodily needs, tend to your spiritual needs. So for folk who don't want you, who are like, oh my goodness, I'm going to sit here for 2.5 hours, don't worry. When you're not talking, if you could mute your microphones to cut back on feedback. And if you're joining us with video, if you're going to be moving around the room, are you picking up your computer, your phone, your laptop and moving it around the room with you? If you could turn your video off while you're doing that. Some people that can make us really motion sick. If you do, however, want to stand up and move and dance or move your body, that great. So I'm going to offer you a brief summary of the ritual, a sort of travel guide, if you like. As is very traditional, we will be offering a land acknowledgement and creating sacred space. The sacred space will be held and created for the entirety of our meeting, so we won't be devoking at the end of this ritual. We're going to be moving into a storytelling piece, as is so traditional in our tradition. Partway through that storytelling piece, there's an obvious transition, and that's when you will have your 5-minute bio break when you've heard stories from the BIRCH Committee. You will then hear some stories and some gorgeous juice and delight from the people who we're currently calling the accountability gaggle, which I'm super excited about. And then we will be working with trance. We will hear a benediction. We will close our ritual, and then there will be a few minutes to cover the logistics for the next part of the ritual. We will share with you the intention for the Lumio part of BIRCH. And then we will release ourselves and go to bed, for me, at any rate, or have breakfast or dinner or wherever you are in the world. So does anyone have any very quick, pithy, logistical questions? Or may I hand us over to our ritual arc team? Fabulous. Thank you so much. Welcome again. Ritual arc team.
So, settling in a little bit more. If you have a window and an opportunity to look out that window, or you're in fact surrounded by the land that you're on, and if not, just conjuring it to mind, all those fond memories, all those places, and sinking into that. And we acknowledge that often the land we are on has deep history, has long history. And we acknowledge the traditional owners, and the first peoples of those places. In my case, that would be the Yagara, Jagara, and Turrbal people of Brisbane, which is often called Mianjin, which is the name of the river. So if you know those names, bringing them to mind and saying them aloud and offering that to that land, to those people, being aware that their story is an ever-evolving story, that we honor their ancestors and we honor their descendants and we honor their elders, which are currently holding the journey of those people. So with deep respect, we begin this ritual here, and that is the land acknowledgement.
So I invite you to open your senses in whatever capacity is available to you today. I invite you to trust your body, whatever that means to you today, in whatever way that best supports you in this magic. And with love and respect, move your energy toward the earth, releasing what doesn't serve you, and receiving that which is freely given, that which supports you in this magic. Bring that into your body. Keep that conduit open. And with curiosity, reach your energy up towards the sky, the stars, releasing that which does not serve you, and drinking in that which is freely given, that which nourishes your body today and in this magic. Our bodies are portals between earth and sky and are sacred containers for this magic. Blessed be our bodies.
And as we often do, we're going to repeat the intention 3 times. I just put it in the chat. So if you feel called, speak along with me, but stay muted. So because of the way Zoom works, we gather from around the globe in all our glorious human diversity to hear stories that have carried us here. We gather from around the globe in all our glorious human diversity to hear stories that have carried us here. We gather from around the globe in all our glorious human diversity to hear stories that have carried us here.
And now we will cast the circle. We are witches. We are weavers. We are storytellers. Around the world, we extend our threads, our stories intermingling to create the rich tapestry of our magics. We come together in this sacred space to listen and learn, to witness and hold, to reflect and dream. Wind out those threads, stretch them long and wide. Let them carry your stories, your ancestors' stories, your community's stories. And as they intersect and intertwine, connecting all over the globe to the many diverse people who make up this community, let the circle be cast. We stand between the worlds, and what happens between the worlds changes all the worlds.
Air. We gather to tell stories and to witness the stories of others. As our words are carried on the breath, I ask that you bless us with clarity and with discernment. I am grateful for your loving presence and your support. Air is sacred. Hail and welcome.
Fire is sacred. Fire is always here. And today we'll be working with stories, hearing different stories, viewing different stories. Feel the fire in your body and your heart of your story. And be here in this fire, this sacred, sacred fire. Fire is sacred.
Water is sacred. Shapeshifter, healer, morning mist, frozen tundra, huge freshwater lakes and tiny ponds, oceans that connect us all, marsh and bog and quiet inlets, mystery and beauty, flowing streams, tidal rivers, our blood coursing through our veins aligned with the moon, source of life. Water is sacred.
As we share and listen to our stories, may we remember we are holding relationships with all beings on this earth. Maybe right now you'd like to hold your hands out as if you can cradle these relationships. None of us can hold all of these by ourselves, and so we need each other's help. May we be held in a solid container of these relationships as we seek to hold our stories, hopes, and dreams for our tradition. May we hold in our awareness our interwoven relationships with all beings of this earth, all winged ones from honeybee to condor, all four-footed ones from salamander to elephant, all swimmers from jellyfish to whale, all creepers and crawlers from ant to butterfly, all slithering ones from earthworm to boa constrictor, all fungi from mold to mushroom, all green bloods from algae to redwood, all minerals, all waters, all soils. We ask for help to know our place in the web of these relationships and to discern the ways to ask for and show up with accountability. May all our relationships thrive. Earth is sacred.
Yuki and Lilo, we can't hear you.
Can you hear us?
Yay, now we can.
Yay, we're gonna start again, sorry.
Não tava.
Não, não sei porquê.
Okay.
Recomeça.
Hi, wits. We call the spirit. Nós invocamos o grande espírito.
We call the Great Spirit.
Nós invocamos o espírito benevolente da humanidade.
We call the benevolent spirit of humankind.
Das ideias criativas.
From the creative ideas.
Do amor profundo.
And the deep love.
Nós invocamos o espírito de todos os continentes.
We call the spirit of all continents.
Nós invocamos o espírito da América,
We call the spirit of America.
da respiração das grandes árvores da Amazônia.
From the breath of the great trees of Amazon.
Nós invocamos o grande espírito da Mãe África,
We call the great spirit of Mother Africa.
com sua sabedoria e ancestralidade,
With their wisdom and ancestry.
repositório da magia primordial.
Repository of all ancestral magic.
Nós invocamos o espírito da Europa,
We call the spirit of Europe.
com suas histórias sobre o mundo e suas histórias épicas.
With their histories about the world and their epic histories.
Nós invocamos o espírito da Ásia,
We call the spirit of Asia.
o espírito da invenção,
The spirit that invents things.
da criatividade e da inspiração,
Of creativity and inspiration.
das flores belas e encantadas.
From the beauty flowers and enchanted flowers.
Nós invocamos o espírito da grande mãe Oceania,
We call the great Mother Oceania.
que levavam as histórias em barcos por todos os lados,
That carried their stories in boats for all around the world.
dos mistérios proibidos do grande oceano.
From the forbidden mysteries of the great ocean.
Nós invocamos o espírito da Antártida,
We call the spirit of Antarctica.
dos mistérios da vida e do tempo congelados em seu branco profundo repleto de fósseis.
From the mysteries of life and time, frozen in their deep white field with fossils.
Que a magia do grande espírito esteja aqui presente.
May the magic of the great spirit be with here now.
O espírito é sagrado.
The spirit is sacred.
Neste momento, eu convido todas as bruxas aqui presentes,
At this moment, I invite you all,
no agora ou no amanhã,
now and in the tomorrow,
espalhadas por todo mundo, por todos os
throughout the world,
lugares,
in all places,
a fazerem algo comigo que é tradicional dentro da comunidade de Claim no Brasil,
to do something that is very traditional for us here in Reclaiming Brazil.
que é mexer os dedinhos,
Move your fingers.
todos na frente, mexendo os dedinhos,
Move your fingers in front of the Zoom.
esticando seus braços
And stretch your arms as much as you can.
e permitindo que nossos dedos possam se tocar
And allow your fingers to touch each other
além do espaço e do tempo.
beyond time and space.
Estamos todos juntas.
We are all here.
Sejam todos bem-vindos a todos ao Espírito.
Welcome you all. Welcome, Spirit. Spirit is sacred.
Time also is sacred. Time is what allows the glorious diversity of the universe to unfold. Time is what allows story to exist. Time is what allows us to have been somewhere else, to be here now, and to carry what we find here, what we experience here out with us after this meeting. Time is sacred.
Our descendants are sacred. The ones who come next. The showers of the way, of the new way. We call to you, descendants. We reach out to you and grab your hands as you grab our hands, and we will pull you in, pulling your magic in to blend with ours. Descendants, you are sacred to us. We honor you. Be here now, descendants.
We acknowledge and welcome the presence of the ancestors and invite their wisdom and insight into this work. If you will, bring the ancestors to your awareness by feeling their presence at your back. Thousands and thousands of forebears there for you and for this work. welcome them by taking a moment to feel what their presence inspires in you. And from your gathering of ancestors, let's step forward those ancestors who are the storytellers and the particular witnesses of your story and the stories of others. Ancestors of story, we honor and welcome your storytelling and your witnessing.
We invite and welcome our mighty dead. We invite and welcome you, Rosemary Dance, Copper Persephone, Rebecca Tidewalker, Angela Magara, Colleen Cook. We invite and welcome those mighty dead of reclaiming whose names I do not know. And if there are names that I have not said, I invite you to share them in the chat. Mighty dead, may you stand with us in our circle, holding us in our vulnerability and in our strength. Be with us to witness, be with us to inform the stories shared, be with us as we navigate the path towards creating and honoring accountability in our tradition. We welcome you, mighty dead.
Are we complete?
We are, yes.
And feeling these spirits and energies that we have invited to be with us, to join with us. I share the journey of BIRCH as I know it. In the late 80s and early 90s, the Reclaiming Collective in San Francisco was staffing all the witch camps in BC and Germany, Michigan. And then in 1994, also Tejas Webb in Vermont, in California, Spiral Heart, others began. I was at that first witch camp at Tejas Webb in 1994. In 1996, Reclaiming decentralized. There was a big meeting and rituals in Portland. Maybe some of you were there. Camp communities around the world were given new autonomy, and a 3-person guidance council of experienced witch camp teachers helped place teachers and student teachers based on camp needs and requests. A spokes council formed, and the spokes council consisted of 2 representatives from each camp community and functioned as really the only place where larger issues of reclaiming were being discussed. And we acknowledged that this structure was not inclusive of the many blossoming communities around the world that were not creating camps, but were building community. It was all we had at the time. I began as a spoke for Tejas Webb in 2000, and then I later served for a few years when we rebirthed our camp. In 2002, the Spokes Council envisioned the Dandelion Gathering, and I think some of you all were there. I was fortunate enough to be in the room in Wimberley, Texas, where we were hosting the Spokes meeting. And Rose May Dance and Angela Magara, all hail the mighty dead, they were there. And so many other friends and family, Julia and Juniper and Suzanne and Donata and Donald and Caledon and Beth and so many other people in that room. And we saw people coming together from all over Reclaiming. We outlined what kind of venue would be needed and what the organizing responsibilities would be. And Tejas Webb, Spiral Heart, and Vermont were able to commit seed money and share in the responsibilities of making that first gathering. 2 years later, in 2004, is when we had that first gathering in Texas. And hundreds of folks from all around the US and Canada and England turned out in the Texas Hill Country. And we envisioned new connections for our far-flung reclaiming communities. Texas did the on-site organizing and Vermont handled the registration. In 2006, 2 years later, we had another gathering in Western Massachusetts, and this is where BIRCH was born. We came up with how BIRCH was going to function, and a number of volunteer working committees formed to do the work of BIRCH. Then later, I think that same year, the Spokes Council met in England and transformed into the Witch Camp Council. 2 years later, in 2008, we gathered again in Northern California in Sonoma. And this is where we really had our first BIRCH meeting. I remember facilitating one session with Yarrow. And we were learning a lot about how we were going to move forward as the larger reclaiming communities that were connecting through BIRCH. In 2010, we gathered for a fourth time at Diana's Grove in Missouri. The BIRCH discussions here centered around gender and a call for changes to the principles of unity. In 2012, 2 years later, we gathered in Portland, Oregon. And there were long, long BIRCH meetings and working groups to craft the language for the changes to the principles of unity. And we reached consensus and agreed to shift our meeting cycle to every 3 years for Dandelion and BIRCH instead of every 2. And then 3 years later, although there was a large amount of seed money from previous fundraising to be sure that we could make an affordable gathering, no community stepped forward to host another Dandelion gathering. And this was at the time the only way that BIRCH meetings were happening, were in person at the Dandelion gathering. And with volunteer leadership and some committees stalled, BIRCH floundered. It wasn't until 2019 when the Dandelion gathering in Northern California reemerged. And we were able to convene a BIRCH meeting again and hear BIRCH proposals around new structure and the initial agenda for changes to the principles of unity were discussed. And then right at the end of the meeting, a BIRCH committee was hastily formed to move BIRCH meetings forward and to focus on the proposals for the changes to the principles of unity. And while my story continues on for 2 more years of this serving on the BIRCH committee, I will pass it on to the next storyteller.
And stories overlap and weave through time and space. And a part of the story that I hold started in the Texas Hill Country, where I was one of very few Brits to show up to the first ever Dandelion gathering. And because I had spent time in the Tejas community before, I felt like I was coming home, or a second home, or a second reclaiming home. And at that meeting in the glorious sunshine, we had a meeting about what the hell is this Spokes Council? And we sat in a circle, and some of us were on Spokes Council and kind of knew what we were supposed to be doing. And some of us weren't on Spokes Council and had no idea what it was supposed to be doing, but we all had feelings about what it should be doing. We wanted retirement homes. We wanted family groups. We wanted all the things. And Spokes Council, which was really about witch camps, was kind of overwhelmed. And I was kind of overwhelmed because I was very newly on Spokes Council, and even more overwhelmed later in that year, which was 2004, when in a venue literally 4 miles from where I am sitting with my arse on this chair, we had the first ever Spokes Council outside of the great United States and Canada. People came over the Atlantic. People came to see us in Britain. It was so exciting. And I was so freaked out because I was quite a lot younger than I am now. And if you can imagine me, very, very shy, wouldn't say boo to a goose back then. So it was a lot to suddenly be organizing Spokes Council in this glorious land where I happen to live now, where I didn't live then. And we gathered in a room with a wooden floor overlooked by a dragon. And we talked about all the things that all of Reclaiming wanted us to do. We couldn't do all the shit. There's no way. And we looked at each other, and some of the faces are in this room, in this Zoom. And we're like, well, what the hell are we going to do? And we broke off into small groups. And I remember, and somewhere I've still got these notes, we kind of all the small groups miraculously came back with something that looked, diagrams that looked really similar. And that was the beginning of BIRCH. And some very clever people came up with the BIRCH acronym, the Broader Into Reclaiming Community Hub. And BIRCH was born. And BIRCH grew. And it grew, its trunk grew, and its branches grew, and its leaves grew, and its leaves died and fell off and withered to the ground and composted. And it grew new bright shoots and seeds and spread them around the world. And some of those took root, and communities had their own birches. And some of the seeds didn't take root, and they withered. And then came And then came inspiration in the form of a new dandelion gathering. Inspiration in the form of a dandelion gathering all the way over the seas for this British witch in California. And I suppose it was my third dandelion gathering. And I very excitedly met my partner in Boston, and we got the bus down to Boston, and we got on, and we got to the airport and we checked in, and then we waited. And then we waited some more because the plane was delayed. And we looked at each other and we're like, you know, we could be doing something else other than going to a meeting halfway across the world, all the way across the country. I'm like, nah, we'll have a cocktail and we'll have some food, and the plane will get here when the plane gets here. And, you know, we'll get to San Francisco when we get to San Francisco. And, you know, we're like, and then we started remembering, and we told the story backwards and forwards and backwards, and how it intersected with all those faces that we were going to see at Dandelion in San Francisco, in the hill country, just north of San Francisco, actually. And all the faces that we'd met online and we didn't really know, but we were excited to see. And one of those people was this really freaking cool Brazilian witch who'd taken some classes with us, and they were going to be there. And I was so freaking excited to meet that person, Lilo, who has become a colleague and a dear friend, and Morgana, who, you know, our threads have connected so many times in so many ways, and so many other people. And to do this work of BIRCH, of inclusivity, of expansion, that is one of the things that really called to me all those years back when I agreed to start doing Spokes Council, to connect, to be in relationship with. And that's where I continue to be, in relationship. And sometimes that's easy and sometimes that's difficult, but always it's worth doing. So now I throw the threads of my story to the person they connect with next.
And taking this breath from across the ocean, I continue to tell the story of the birch, and I continue to tell this story right in the moment where I had the pleasure to meet a lot of you here in the Zoom call in person, and the creation of the BIRCH Committee itself. It happened on a dandelion gathering. One of that happened after a great break, when time thought we needed more time to vision, to feel, to sense what were our next steps. There were voices missing. Several voices from around the globe were missing. They could not be there. They could not fly through the air. So we received the first vision. Let's create a BIRCH Committee. But what is that? Well, a committee, the BIRCH Committee, is empowered to make BIRCH happen, making it most inclusive we could make. But where? How? Well, perhaps with magic of Zoom. Zoom is magical itself. We can use it. And who is going to step in for this sacred duty? Well, me, and me, and other me, and other me, and other me. Oh, so many me's. Great. A few people step in. People from the edges. People who knew what is marginalization. Those marginalized ones, willing to make the change, longing for a big change, to be heard, yearning to make those who are not heard have their voices in the center. A BIRCH Committee made by BIPOC people, trans and non-binary people, reclaiming elders, young folks, etc., made by hope, made by esperança, feito de esperança. The first big challenge, changing the principles of unity. One of our most powerful spells, the one all of us relate to, have a relationship to, perhaps in love, in rage, in hope, and in sadness. We wanted to hear the voices of those in our community who have been speaking loudly, but were silenced by white supremacy. Black people, indigenous people, witches of color, a term that I recently learned from a dear friend. Those who suffer from structural racism in our society. The time for them to be heard more than ever came. And there was labor. Oh gosh. Emotional labor, a lot of it. And there was magic, powerful magic, deep magic. And there were wisdom. Wisdom from deep inside, from the community, from our hearts. Listen, listen. Can you hear that? Can you feel that? The time is changing. The tides are changing. The world is slowly, but changing. We are an anti-racism tradition that strives to uplift and center BIPOC voices, Black, indigenous, and people of color. We are an anti-racist tradition that strives to uplift and center BIPOC voices, Black, indigenous, and people of color. We are an anti-racist tradition that strives to uplift and center BIPOC voices, Black people, indigenous people, and people of color. But this was only the beginning. This was a dream, desiring, filling hearts with hope and magic. It was only the roots. The seed needed water and nutrients. The tree needs to grow, and our tree can be named accountability, responsibility. Some people might say, this is an ugly tree. It's not beautiful. It's bad, makes me feel weird, ouch. Some people might say, this is the most beautiful tree I've ever seen in my life. We dream with accountability. We dream of holding each other accountable in a healthy and sustainable way. We dream with change, with radical inclusiveness, with radical justice. That's what I am personally committed to in reclaiming. And that's where we are now. And I pick up this thread of history, our history, my history, your history, and I send it directly to the next person who will continue to tell the story, our story.
Thank you, Lilo, Raven, and Morgana for bringing us through that journey, not only in your words, but also in your being for many, many years now. So this question, where are we now? Where are we now? How did I get here? And what is going on? My own story is of a journey through deep love for this community and tradition. A love that nourished, that beckoned, that not only held my dreams, but also helped me to activate them. A love of a relief that change-making and liberation could be wrapped in joy and healing instead of just hurt and anger all the time. As deep love goes, so the stakes rise. Like many in our community, I felt the ruptures, the tensions, the grief, and turmoil. I felt this as an individual who exists at multiple intersections of so-called marginality. And I felt this in our collective heart too. When I was invited to join the BIRCH Committee, I did not know what to do. I looked down at my body and I saw many hands and many feet, some still deep in the water of this cauldron, while others were reaching out energetically, trying to find some other thing. I share this as my own story, and I know that I'm not alone. We've had some growing pains together. So where are we now? How did we get here? I did end up joining the BIRCH Committee, as you see, and I'm here as the newest and I believe youngest member of the group. So we are here now, and we did struggle to get here. The planning for BIRCH 2022 saw many hardships and our own grappling with what accountability to this work looked like when we felt extremely under-resourced and exhausted. As the newest member of the group, 6 months in, I looked to my peers and I wondered how they had been doing this for years. And not just the years that were spoken to by Morgana and Raven in the 90s and the 2000s, but in the last 2 years when the BIRCH Committee reformed. But who are we? We are witches. We work with story, with magic, with ripples, and the wisdom of our bodies spoke to us and reminded us to take care and to remember who we are. My own disabilities came and showed me love and reminded me that I need to be cared for and that I need to go slow sometimes, and that the rush to urgency is often tied to capitalism and white supremacy, things that as a community, we speak a lot about trying to undo. So in love for each other and for ourselves, and in love for the deep work of accountability in all its shapes, some that we know and some that we don't, we sit in circle with you here today as a community and ritual. I'm going to ask you to just take a breath if that feels good to you right now, or move your body if that feels good. We've been listening a lot with our ears. Maybe you want to give our ears some love right now, a little rub. You've heard our story of how we got here, and we know that you have your own story to tell as well, as individuals, as community reps, as people who have been in and out, weaving with us throughout the years, or maybe for only a few months if you're new. In a moment, we're going to take a break, and I invite you to lift yourself out from this Zoom space, from the screen, and think about your own story, and tend to that thread as we take just 5 minutes to take care of whatever we need to take care of. Cuddle our cat, take a sip of water, maybe use the bathroom. And when you come back to sit and rejoin the group, know that you are also bringing your own story into this space and into this community. I'm going to play some music on the break, so you can leave that running if you like. And when the song ends, you'll know it's time to come back. We'll have about 5 minutes.
And the storytelling continues. We from the accountability gaggle, we from the accountability cell, we from the accountability caw, 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 are here to tell you some of our stories. But first, we want to offer you a song. Moss Dance and I caught this song, and we offer it as a prayer and a spell and a way to, an invitation of a way to hold each other and ourselves in this going forward with principles of accountability. There are two versions of the song. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear it when it starts?
Hi, this is Moss.
Hi, this is Captain with a song from BIRCH.
We are not the first to offer up this love, and we won't be the last for this world we're dreaming of. Go gently, go gently, go gently on us. Go gently, go gently, go gently on yourselves.
We are not the first to offer up this love, and we won't be the last for this world we're dreaming of. Go gently, go gently, go gently on us. Go gently, go gently, go gently on yourself.
'Cause we are not the first to offer up this love,
and we won't be the last for the world we're dreaming of.
Go gently, go gently, go gently on us.
Go gently, go gently, go gently on yourself. And now for the death metal version. We are not the first to offer up this love.
We are not the first, the last.
We will be the one for the world we're dreaming of.
So go gently,
go gently, go gently on yourselves. Go gently, go gently, go gently on yourself.
Gently.
So gentle.
So gentle.
Yeah.
Blessed be.
How can I follow that? I'm in the go gently too. So I will offer a story. First, I will offer a dream. Why are we here? We are here to make an evolutionary leap in reclaiming. We are here to learn. We are here to build skills and learn to be radically transparent about who we are and what we need. We are here to slow down, to take the time to make sure that we are supporting everyone in our community in the best ways possible. We are here to listen with our bodies, to attune our nervous systems. We are here to help everyone step into the dance of love and pleasure. And the clearer we can be about who we are and what we need, the more we can step in and be loved for who we truly are. Okay, but why are we really here? We are here because many of us have experienced not being included, not felt that we were seen for who we are. We are here because we have lost people. People have left our tradition. Teachers have left our tradition because seeing our magic from the perspective of a person of color was perhaps too much of a stretch. Or because as people with disabilities or low income, events were not accessible. Or because as trans or genderqueer or non-gendered folk, maybe people did not see themselves represented in the polarities of our magic. I am here because I have felt marginalized. I have left reclaiming, and I've had the good fortune to be invited back in. I am here because I met some amazing people at that Dandelion gathering in 2019, and much gratitude to those who gathered us for that. And because at that Dandelion, we weathered some storms there as well. Nothing about us without us, please. And we're still weathering storms in online forums, in camps, in online gatherings. I am here because the pandemic actually resulted in Zoom meetings with people of color in dark. And that opened my eyes to many things, and I learned so much. Harm is happening in the world at large and in our community. And more people are on the edge of leaving. But I am here because of people who said, this is urgent. We have to stop this harm. And because there's overwhelming love and support in reclaiming, for learning, for evolving, for making our community truly inclusive. Makes me cry to think about it. We're here because communities all over reclaiming are evolving, are doing the work to prevent harm and to address harm, to set boundaries and make our communities safe enough so that everyone can step into the circle with joy. So I am here to make community, to see who is here, to rejoice in each person, to talk with them and invite them in. I am here in love, in hope, and in gratitude.
I am Luna Crow. I've been part of this accountability gaggle, this cell. I am here because last year at BIRCH, we took up the questions of how to embody and enact and enable our newly revised principles of unity. As we were breathing the breath of life into what connects us and binds us together, there were many of us, many of us, including the Portland ritual cell, that were reckoning with how supremacy was moving through our tradition, how racialized harm has occurred and was continuing to occur, and who had made vows to stop the harm. In Portland, we were in this reckoning when the proposal came forward to adopt principles of accountability. And we very much, and I very much, and I was our community rep, we very much believe in the impulse, in the instinct to move towards the stop sign that said we must end this harm now. And we weren't through our own reckoning. So we did a terrifying thing and we blocked the proposal to adopt principles of accountability for our whole tradition. And we said yes to joining the accountability gaggle to begin to brew up the nourishment, the ingredients, the recipes that could support the rippling out of accountability, of the medicine and the nourishment required for our tradition to stop perpetuating supremacy in our gatherings and in our relationships.
Hi, I'm Julia. Hoping you can hear me. My first time to talk today. Thank you. When I found myself called to join the accountability working group, gaggle cell, it was clear to me that I needed to be there. It's not clear to me what we were going to do. I hadn't been involved before at that level with international reclaiming witches. Woo! But it turns out it's fun. And yeah, time zones. And learning curve on connectivity software like Zoom and other things. And it turns out that need a lot of viewpoints to get at a description of accountability to make the magic of relationship, to pilfer somebody else's perfectly good phrase. Maybe they'll step up and say that whose phrase it is. I was completely enchanted by Lumio as a way to have a little more structure for an online type meeting, a text type meeting, having been completely overwhelmed by an email, attempts to do email meetings before. Lots of gratitude for the opportunity to do it. Lots of gratitude to the other people who showed up on a regular basis, and gratitude to the people who started out and decided not to. So I hand the story on now to another gaggler.
This is Captain for Tiger, who can't be here today. This is a story by Tiger. Once upon a time, there was a trans boy called Tiger who found out that he was a witch. The other witches said things like, boys can't be witches, and you can't be a witch and trans. So he walked away and tried to learn as much as possible himself. He spent a lot of time in the woods. He visited ancient monuments. He talked to the fae. But he missed the company of other witches. It took him a long time to find trans and queer witches and a tradition where he feels at home. Witches of this tradition asked how to make it more inclusive and what to do when witches hurt each other. He was called to help with this work, and he was happy, but a little nervous to join. The other witches spoke a different language, so he had to think hard to find the words when sharing grief, hopes, and fears, stirring the cauldron and writing many words together. The other witches got up very, very early to do this when it was evening at his house. And he was barely awake, and he was tired from working all day. So when they all yawned together and shared stories and resources and their gifts and their talents, they worked hard and looked at each other with inspiration and much love on their screens and did the magical work so that the draft for the principles of accountability came into being. And I pass it over to Bendis.
And Bendis opted to skip for now, so it's back to you, Captain.
My story.
I'm okay with speaking.
Oh, good. Welcome, Bendis.
I didn't know what you were asking me. Anyway, I'm Bendis. My pronouns are she and her. I have a passion for justice. I'm one of those kind of people that stands up for the little guy. So when this came up, I saw it as an opportunity to do some really good work. My interest, I will have to confess, my interest in all of this has been what happens when harm happens, you know, when somebody's feelings are hurt, or what happens. In the usual situation, People just leave. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to report something that they feel like nobody else will understand. So they just leave, and we never know. And that really, really, really disturbs me. Our entire goal should be on keeping members who can grow in love together. And so I've spent this past year researching ways to do that. Now, while that's not a part of this document, it is something that we are going to encourage communities to work on in their communities. I have a lot of research I can share with that, but I'm excited about what we've done here and happy to have been a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Bendis. My story has an airplane flying over it. My story doesn't have a whole bunch of words. I floated in, I'm captain, I floated in many different genders. I floated in with many disabilities that make understanding things hard. I floated in with a lot of privilege, a lot of class privilege. I floated in as a big fucking queerdo. My story is a bit like this. Reclaiming, 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 reclaiming. Aren't we there yet? Aren't I there yet? Oh, fuck. I just heard that person. Ouch. They, we, them, us, them, us. Joyful accountability? Ah, them, us. We, ah, we, all the way home.
And up 10 crows. He, they, on the squally land, on the Salish Sea. And I'm taking a class right now with Starhawk online on ritual tools. And yesterday in class, a lot of time was spent talking about people from different cultures and different lineages in circle, and how sometimes you have to craft your words and craft the tools and the ritual itself around where people are coming from, where they come from into circle. It was amazing to spend time listening and talking about that. And there was time spent talking about cultural appropriation in that class too. There's like tons of people interested. It was amazing to see that. And it dawned on me that in the 10 plus years that I've been in reclaiming has come a long way. And especially here today, hearing all these long stories that go way back. It's amazing how far from the very beginning we've all come. This year's work wasn't something that I could have foreseen, even though I put myself on the road of working with these types of things, probably around 2018. In 2018, I put myself on what felt like a very lonely road. It's a lonely road. I'm starting coming back to reclaiming after having stepped back for a year to come back. And found myself going to Dandelion. And at Dandelion, meeting very many of my dark members who I'd never seen in person before. We were together at Dandelion. And from there, moving forward into 2021 and the call for this working group, and there was no question for me whether or not I was going to be on this group. It was the place that I had, started walking towards a number of years before. But I didn't imagine the people that I would be working with and the commitment that was there and the depth of the knowledge that was there and the scope of it from around the world. This was a first time for me to get to work in deep magic for a long time with people from everywhere. And it was amazing. So it took us a while to get to know each other. We started off slow during the year. We were pulling from our different communities. I was thankful for what Portland brought. They're not too far away from me. And we put our heads down and we put a survey out, and I want to definitely thank everybody who responded to the survey. So much learning. So we were gathering documents, we were pulling in from surveys, we were just soaking up like sponges, everything that people had sent in about what they knew about accountability and how they did it. And then when the date for today was set, we started the creative process, right? Started pulling all that together. You'll see some of that today. There's 3 parts to what we had, but today we're going to be working with the first part. And getting there and getting here was very personally magical for me, and bringing this gift of this draft to this community was an important road to travel. And I will say that for those of you that don't know, that my lineage is at Oglala, which is a Lakota tribe. I was introduced to the 13 Indigenous grandmothers by Rebecca Tidewalker about 10 years ago. And at that point, my lineages actually started doing this, right? I'm sure many people have felt that kind of a thing with where they come from. But in all of these years, I have never had an inclination to invite anyone from my family or my tribe to a reclaiming event because it didn't feel safe enough. And that's a hard thing to have to live with and have to move forward with, and to believe that you can somehow make a difference, right? And I will tell you that after this week, after this year, I finally feel like we're there. I finally feel like we're starting something. There's a saying among the Lakota. Many people have heard it. It's that we are all related. And most people might think that it's just a saying. Oh, that's just a saying, right? Somebody said that and it's kind of it's kind of wise and it's just a saying, but it's not just a saying. It's how we pray. When the Lakota come together in circle and we call ourselves together, and we call ourselves together with the creator and the universe, that's what we say. That's how we start our prayers, is we are all related. And so for the first time, I feel like I can say that in the circle of witches here. And I want to say that now. We are all related. Mitaka oasun. We are all related. Mitaka oasun. So might it be.
So mote it be. And so it is. I invite you to begin to feel the edges of your own body, getting yourself prepared to go on a trance journey together. Get your wiggles out. Remember your breath. And begin to turn inward. Begin to let your focus come into your body. Let yourself connect with the rhythm of your own breath. Let yourself sink into that inhale and exhale. You find yourself aware of your breath. Begin to let that inhale and that exhale open your witch's sight. Using that powerful imagination you have. Imagine you find yourself in a birch forest. As you're breathing in and breathing out. Begin to notice how you're sharing a breath with these birch people. And that shared breath of inhale and exhale here in the quiet of the birch forest. Noticing that mutual give and take. With your witch's sight, notice at the edge of the birch forest, you can see a clearing. And you feel maybe a sense of curiosity about what is in the clearing. Maybe you find yourself allured to walk through the threshold between the forest and this open space. And you take a breath and you go gently across the threshold and into the clearing, leaving the birch canopy. Take a moment to notice the sky above. Is it bright? Is it overcast? Take a moment to breathe here in the clearing. As you breathe, you notice a gate at the edge of the clearing, and you make your way to this gate. And you notice a sign on this gate that says, "All are welcome." It even says your name. You are welcome. And you find yourself curious again. What is through the gate? This gate that says you are welcome. And you take a breath. And you step gently. You go gently. You roll gently through the gate. You find yourself in a garden. Someone's kitchen garden. The aromatic herbs, other delicious green ones. Take a moment to notice the garden. Breathe here in the garden. While you're exploring the garden, you hear voices. Happy, chatty, laughing voices. You notice a door. And on the other side of the door is a boisterous kitchen saying, "Hello, hail and welcome, hello." And you take a breath and you go gently through the door into this bustling kitchen where everyone stops what they're doing to look you in the eye and say, "Hello, welcome. We're so glad you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome." And you notice in the center of this kitchen is a big cauldron. You can smell the brew. There are many witches stirring this cauldron, stirring this brew. I invite you to come closer to get a good whiff of what's brewing in this cauldron. Luna Crow takes the spoon and begins to read a little of the recipe that made this brew. Reclaiming affirms that each person brings their own unique magic to our circle of love. We rejoice in our differences, for they make us wiser, stronger, more resilient. To create sacred spaces that are safer and more accessible for all. We call our powerful magic here into each of us, into each of our communities, to create a strong container for ourselves, for our rituals, for our classes and camps, for our cells and covens.
Justice within the reclaiming community grows from the voices of its justice-seeking members, expands from the acknowledgement of teachers and organizers, and comes home to live in the hearts and bodies of its members. We see the unique magic that each person brings to make our magic a powerful, safe, and fair manifestation of our commitment to love and land.
Bendis, are you still with us?
With open hearts, we make a home for all magical beings, regardless of how little or how much power they hold in the world's racist, capitalist, and colonial systems. We imbue our spaces with accountability, a beacon of safety to all who enter our circles. In this time, recognition of diverse beloveds, BIPOC, LGBTQ asterisk people, people with disabilities, older folks, is growing. The gender star stands for multiverse of genders, expressions, and embodiments, and freedom to explore and manifest beyond fixed labels and identities. It grows from a longing to understand and more deeply each day our place in the circle of love. It grows with the realization that we are all the justice-seeking ones, calling in ourselves and accountable to ourselves. I'll continue. Accountability is the magic of relationship. Community empowered, inclusive of justice seekers, and self-aware. Springing from deep listening. Accountability springs from love with fire, intention, and learning. It tears down harmful old ways. It decays old hurts and imbalances through attentive unlearning.
From deep self in relationship, we are accountable to each other, to the land, and to the spirits. This magic grows strong in community where members work together consensually to develop tools for growing and retaining regenerative circles of love. Along with this essential lifelong commitments to learning, we find ways to be with our own nervous systems and the cultural nervous systems we are each a part of. Dancing towards joyful accountability as an act of love and pleasure.
We are diverse in all our ways. We flow from a diversity of ancestors to an intermingling of descendants who are waiting on us to move the arc of justice with our love. Together with our spirits, allies, deities, the Fae, and all the beings of the land. Creating a safe enough circle for all requires all members of our tradition.
We invoke within ourselves the beauty of multiple justice-seeking identities, as witches of color, as Black witches, as Indigenous witches, as witches of varying abilities, as witches with disabilities and chronic conditions, as neurodiverse witches, as witches with varying gender or genderless identities, as queer and genderqueer witches, as witches from many places speaking many languages, as witches of varying economic means, as witches of varying sizes, all of us. Yes, we are magnificent.
We are all part of this justice-seeking community. Clear about our own needs, we extend grace to others, support their stated needs and boundaries as they step in to the dance of love and pleasure. We call forth mystery and miracle, mycelial nourishment and knowledge, flowering and fruiting, creating and destroying, decaying and blossoming, dismantling and building. Hard lessons, gradual learning, and flashes of insight. We call forth the speaking of truths and deep listening. We call forth sacred boundaries and sacred respect.
The call for accountability is a gift and a charge, crafted in these uncertain times. Acknowledging the work and struggle of those who came before us, we call on all reclaiming witches to create approaches and concepts for accountability magic that works for each community. We call to gather resources and to come up with new resources for this task. Let there be room for mystery, potential for healing, change, and growth, and a continual process of learning and unlearning, knowing and unfolding. Now is love's time to listen.
Here in this kitchen, gathered around this cauldron, make yourself comfortable. Maybe you find a cozy cushion. Maybe you lean against the wall. Maybe you hold a friend's hand. Make yourself at home.
Yes, make yourself at home. And hang out in this kitchen where the cauldron is still bubbling and brewing. And it smells all sorts of wonderful. It smells different to each person. So breathe it in. How does it smell to you? As you take it in and let that nourishment seep into your body. Where do you feel it? How do you feel? Do you want to move? Does it make you antsy? Maybe you feel a song rising up, or words, or feelings. As you smell the brew and maybe even taste it, you think, oh, maybe it needs a little bit of this or a little bit of that. What spices do you like? What would you want this brew to taste like? Do you think, oh, I could bring the spice of deep listening or deep presence? I could listen and try to smooth the way. Or you might think, oh, I feel in my body a tightness. I'm not entirely comfortable with this. And in this space and in this kitchen, you might even speak that discomfort. And people would turn to you and they will listen and maybe take in deeply what you are saying. And they might hear what you need in your discomfort, and they might stir that into the brew. Or you might be sniffing this magnificent brew and feeling a song rise up in your heart. And that's all welcome as well. Or you might be brewing an idea. Maybe the people in the room are speaking to their perspectives out of their diversity. And you might have a whole different idea for remaking the ritual you're planning. So just breathe in. And smell this brew. Give it a few breaths. Let yourself be nourished.
This brew feels so wonderful in my body. Feel it in your body. Feel the sensations that rise through you. Let go of any worry about not capturing all the recipes that went into this brew. They'll be made available to you afterwards. Yeah. Just feel the brew as it's stirred and it wafts towards you the scents, and you're in community with wonderful people who are so welcoming of you, offering you this brew. Feel that in your heart. How does it feel to open in connection in this way? How does this brew the sense of what has been brewing and offered to you? How does it feel in your heart? How does it feel? What's the energy that you sense that touches your heart? Focus there at the place where your heart beats and holds you, connecting as a living being with all we're related to and with. How does this brew land there? How does it feel? Notice any resistance you might have. Any resistance. If you detect any resistance in your heart, can you open your heart more? What does that feel like? We can always open our hearts even more. Yeah. See what it feels like. Feel what it feels like to open even just a wee bit more to this brew, this loving gift that's being offered to us, to the we, the collective we. Open your heart as much as you can, noticing the sensations that come through. They're all fine. There's no correct way to open your heart. Just notice Just notice the feelings that come through, whether the brew feels nourishing and helps open your heart. What would it take? What would you need to open your heart to this loving brew even more? To our community even more through this offering? What would you need? Ask your heart. Ask your heart. What more do I need to accept this loving brew, to accept this nourishment? Your heart is so wise. Your heart knows the answers. Your heart can hold so much. Your heart can open at your will, at its coaxing. More and more, feel the sensations coursing through you, radiating from your heart as you try this on. What is the wisdom of your heart? As you sense and feel the energy of this nourishing brew. Perhaps you sipped it, cupping your hands into the cauldron and letting the liquid come down your throat, and you feel it in your heart. Just notice the sensations. And if it's comfortable, let them just radiate from your heart. Your heart open. Remember the wisdom of your heart.
What's that taste? What's that taste? There's something there you're asking yourself. It's kind of spreading throughout your body. Maybe it's growing in your mouth or going in the back of your throat. Is that something? It didn't start out like that, but now it's tasting. You know what? Even better. It's tasting even better. Wait, didn't someone tell you this was going to be hard? It didn't seem that hard. If you were going to share this, if you wanted to walk away and have a recipe for your relatives and your circle, what would it look like? Of course, it's going to be easy. That's how you do things. What would it feel like to be easy? How would it feel in your body if accountability was easy? Can you feel it flowing? Can you feel just joyful, heartfelt care for people just bubbling out all around you and kind of catching? And as other people are doing it around you, how does it feel in your body? How is their body reacting to your body and your body reacting to their body? You notice that? that feeling of connection. How does that joy feel? When you are confident with your community, and their ability and character to address harm, to provide safety, to welcome everybody, right, to serve up this joyful stew. How does it feel? You know, are you laughing at yourself because you thought it was going to be hard? You'll know when you get there. It's a short recipe. It's a short recipe. If you can remember how it feels here now, you can remember it again when you're at home and together. If you jotted down some notes, you know where to put them. It's easy.
Come here, come a little closer. Of course, you're not going to leave our kitchen without taking a little home to taste later, to share with your relatives. Come here, come here. Here, take this. Take this. The recipe is tucked in, the aroma in the flavors. You'll remember. Thank you for coming to our home and hearth, our kitchen. Thank you for tasting this brew, for letting us share it with you. Thank you for being here. To the chattering, happy noises here in this kitchen, take a look around. Tuck in any bits you want to remember. Maybe tuck a little into a lock of hair, right on your lips. Trusting your body to keep the nourishment. Trusting your body to release what does not serve you. Begin to make your way to that kitchen door. But before you go, all the witches here shout, farewell, farewell, farewell. Goodbye, goodbye. Thank you for coming. Farewell. And you go gently out the kitchen door. And you find yourself back in the garden. And you breathe a breath of gratitude, now knowing the abundance of this garden helped make this brew that you carry with you now. Breathing a breath of thanks for the lives given to make this brew. Thank you. And you begin to make your way to that garden gate. You know the one that opens back into the clearing. Remember how you saw your name that said you are welcome. Open that gate. Let yourself go gently out of the gate, back into the clearing. That clearing where you remember looking up at the sky. Breathe a breath again. As you move back across the clearing, gently across the clearing you go. Till you find yourself back at the edge of that birch forest. And you take a breath again. And you go gently from the clearing back under the canopy of the birch trees to that place where you shared the breath of mutual give and take. Maybe you remember that the good medicine of birch is one of digestion, helping you metabolize that delicious brew that you carry in your belly or on your lips, or the scent of that brew in your hair. You breathe again with the birch forest, offering your gratitude for this canopy, this wise canopy, this old growth here. Breathing in and out with these birch trees. And your witch's sight begins to turn inward again. And you know to find the edges of your body, to breathe yourself back into this present moment. Maybe you tap your skin, maybe you say your name, whatever helps you come back to be here now.
We're back, and I'm thrilled to be in circle with all of you wonderful witches. And I'm feeling the preciousness of that gift from the accountability gaggle. I hope you're feeling the preciousness of the gift from the accountability gaggle. Yeah. The result, the recipes of the hard work and the play through the year. And we're the ones who are going to take the recipes, yeah, and make the brew together. We're the ones who are going to take the recipes out to our communities. Don't worry, the recipes will be shared through our wonderful meeting together. But hold with you that preciousness, the feeling quality of the brew, the accountability brew of what was presented in the cauldron today, stirred so lovingly. Keep that in your heart. And as we work together, play together through the meeting, we'll share more about how we'll take the work out into the world, how we'll maintain the preciousness of what we've been gifted. And I so look forward to making this magic with you all. I love our reclaiming kin. So mote that brew be.
Ancestors, ancestors, I have felt your presence and your joy in this work on this day. I have heard your words spoken from the lips and on the breath of those who are living. And I thank you for your stories and your support and your wisdom and always, always your love. I remember you, and I am not the only one. And for those of us ready to return a bit more, if you like, repeat aloud or in your mind, I am, and say your name. I am Sissel. I am coming home to myself. I have a place on the land. I have a place of belonging. And I am coming home to now.
Thank you all so much for that cauldron of delight and joy and tasty nourishment. Accountability gaggle, Tigress, do you have anything else that you want to share in talking space?
So many things we want to share, of course.
Pertinent to the, this.
But I just wanted to say one thing about what we are sharing in its entirety. What we shared with you just now was the first part, and that was the affirmation and invocation. And there is a second part, which is the invitation to action. And that is a little bit more principles and the backbone of our thinking and some practical ideas and things to reflect on and specific guidelines. So that's the invitation to start into this work in our communities. And then we have conceived a third part, which we haven't brought into complete manifestation yet. And that is the cookbook, the library of recipes And we've collected so much information that would be, helpful to share. A lot of work that's already been done in our communities and different other types of documents that might be helpful for people to see. So we're hoping to assemble those. And I don't think our cell has totally committed to this, but we're thinking of putting those together and hoping to release them maybe by the end of this gathering. So that's what's on offer in our kitchen cupboard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So from this meeting, our circle will remain cast for the entirety of our Lumio meeting and for our next ritual, and we will close at the end. Our wonderful ritual team are holding that, but we are all holding that together. So remember, when you enter the cauldron of Lumio, when you log in, when you click the threads, that we are in sacred space. Perhaps you would like to light a candle every time you enter the portal of Lumio, perhaps incense, perhaps put on a special piece of jewelry, whatever works for you to remind yourself that we are in ritual, this is magic, and we are witches. We will gather back in this place 2 weeks from now to weave and spin the threads of the magic that was seeded so many years ago through the mists of history, that have been brought through the threads of time by so many people, that have been eloquently described and shared with us by the accountability gaggle, and more, what we each pour into the cauldron of Lumio and stir and share and bring our community members, hopefully, to share that and contribute to that with us. So if there are folk in your community who aren't aware of this meeting, aren't aware of this magic, our registration remains open. You can tell them, share with them. There is, registration will remain open, I think, until the Thursday before the last closing ritual. So encourage people to dip their toes in. We do need people to register so we can try and make it as safe a space as possible. I would love to share with you the intention, because Lumio is part of this ritual. We have an intention for Lumio. And that is, we create a sustainable cauldron of skill, connection, and sustainable care. We create a sustainable cauldron of skill, connection, and sustainable care. We create a sustainable cauldron of skill, connection, and sustainable care. So from here, let us take the threads, the brew, the ideas, the juice, the inspiration, and all our open-heartedness to that place. Thank you all so much for coming, for being present, for sharing this. We have 23 minutes before the end of our contracted time. Thank you for that wonderful invocation of time. Woohoo! If anyone has any questions, now is the time to ask. And if you type, I think I'm seeing Alex's hand up. If you just type stack, we've probably got time for maybe 2 or 3 questions.
This is actually less a question and more of an announcement and beautiful synchronicity. This upcoming weekend, the Ableism Impacted Reclaiming Alliance cell is going to be having a community soup ritual where we're brewing our own little community soup. And we've decided that we're going to open it to all reclaiming. So we welcome everybody. And it's amazing how well it's paralleling with this work right now. So thank you so much for having Ira. It's our first year being here. And thank you for all the hard work and for this lovely opening.
Wow, thank you for that invitation. Alex, would you be willing to post, that somewhere in the Zoom thread? Sorry, in the Lumio thread, so that folk can find it. I'm wondering, Bright Flame, Beth, and Jenica, if there might be a thread for sort of community offerings like this, possibly on Lumio. And maybe if one or all of you could liaise with Alex to get that started, because I think people would really love to know that. That would be fabulous. Thank you. Anyone for anything else? Julia's hands are up, and Laurie.
I was just celebrating.
Awesome, fabulous, I love it. Laurie, were you celebrating or wanting to say something?
I'll celebrate that we have an online auction to raise funds for BIRCH, for items that were consensed at our last BIRCH gathering. So I posted in the chat the link. We have, I think, 23 items that have been donated by community members. And share with your community. We'll be posting it through social media. And thank you to everybody who's contributed and anyone who will be contributing to help fund. There's more details when you click there about where the money will go, which I won't take up now. But if you attended BIRCH before, you may recall what was consensed. So anyway, thank you. And let's raise the roof.
Thank you so much for taking that on. So if you could, if any folk have any more questions, because I've got 2 pages of you on my screen, type stack into the Zoom chat, then I will be able to see who's next up. Excellent. Nadari, thank you.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to thank you all for your commitment and all of your time of work. Thank you.
Lilo, were you waving at me or wanting to talk? Neither.
No, sorry, I'm translating. So sometimes I'm making things like, it's just me translating. Sorry.
And I'm really just teasing you. Anyone else? Any clarifying questions? Any comments? Anything?
Raven?
Yeah.
Maybe we can just let everyone here know that we did record the meeting, and if you didn't see, we did have trouble getting the live stream up and running. So today we'll work to figure out getting the recording on YouTube. So if you're a rep and you have folks asking you what happened to the live stream, where can I see the recording, it will be on the BIRCH YouTube, and we'll make sure to send that link around. And thank you all for your patience around that.
Thank you so much, Alex, for wrangling, and Morgana for wrangling the tech. I'm sorry it didn't behave. Okay.
And let me just add about Lumio. We'll be opening thread. We, the facilitation team, will be opening threads a little bit slowly, but there's some up right now with information, including the auction. And we'll have another 1 or 2 in the next day. We hope to get it up actually within hours about introducing your wonderful selves, but breathe with us and give us a little space to pull it together. And we will have threads where you can offer suggestions and connect, and like Alex shared, have a place to note your offerings to the community.
Thank you all so much. Yay, Team Witch. Let's try all dive into Lumio and, you know, make this a meeting that is spoken in down the years in history of being fun and insightful and delightful and productive and joyful and caring. So that 10 years, 20 years hence, when some other group of people are sat on a Birch meeting Zoom reviewing our history, this is the one that stands out and we remember. Okay. So it's midnight for me. I'm about to fall asleep. It's wonderful to see you all. Thank you all so much. I'm going to say good night.
Farewell.
Farewell.
Good night, sweet witches. Thank you all so much for showing up.
See you on Ludo.
Big thank you to the Birch Committee for
Yay.
holding this.
Bye-bye.
And the gaggle, the
The
gaggle.
The
Yay.
gaggle.
Yay.